Government and union heads at the table this morning. Find out what went down coming up.
Plus a landmark ruling handed down today which will affect drug cases.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Candino Knowles.
And I'm Opal Rose. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, strike action by members of the Trade Union Congress is officially off. We're told those members are following that court order as TUC leaders enter into talks with the government.
That's right. TUC affiliates took strike action for the past 2 days over outstanding issues with government. Our Karissma Robinson tells us that the umbrella union is still trying to have a Supreme Court injunction that was issued on Wednesday lifted.
It's back to the negotiating table for Trade Union Congress members. TUC President Obie Ferguson, responding to Labor Minister Shane Gibson's request, has stopped strike action and is meeting with government to resolve outstanding issues. 1 day after the minister accused union heads of avoiding negotiations, Director of Labor Robert Ferguson says the TUC is now complying with a court order. We spoke with him following that nearly 4-hour meeting Friday.
The president would have acknowledged that the order of the court must be followed, and he subsequently directed all members of the union to return to work forthwith.
But Ferguson says they found out halfway through that meeting that some of those workers did not report to work for a third day. He says those workers are now in contempt of court.
Discussions began this morning, but still there were a significant amount of nurses who are stationed at the Princess Margaret Hospital and the Rand Memorial Hospital, and silence who did not report to work. There was a demonstration this morning going on out front of Customs Building, where about 30 to 40 custom officers were demonstrating. In addition to that, a number of persons from the Department of Immigration who were supposed to report to work did not report to work, and as a result, an incident occurred at the detention center.
The labor director was referring to an incident which ZNS News reported Friday morning involving 13 Cubans who reportedly tried to set fire to the Carmichael Road Detention Center Thursday night. ZNS News did speak with immigration officials, but they declined to comment. Meantime, labor officials are firm in their position. They will not continue talks with the TUC and its affiliates unless all workers are back on the job. ZNS News attempted to speak with TUC President Obie Ferguson. As he left that meeting Friday, he declined.
It was agreed that Mr. Ferguson and his team comply with the order of the court, and subsequent to that, the government will meet with them with the view to discussing and trying to resolve some of the points. Another meeting is scheduled for tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., and it is anticipated that all of the persons would return to work and the court injunctions will be adhered to.
Now, when labor officials meet with these unions again tomorrow, they're hoping that many of those burning issues will be resolved once and for all. Karissma Robinson, ZNS Network News.
Well, a landmark ruling handed down by a senior judge today in relation to a drug case.
The ruling also restores the discretion of the courts when passing sentence in those matters. Fern Carey explains.
Senior Justice John Isaacs has ruled that the imposition of the mandatory minimum sentence for drug possession with intent to supply is unconstitutional. That ruling handed down Thursday at the close of a constitutional motion by attorney Murray DeSeal on behalf of Barrington Johnson. Johnson was sentenced to 4 years in prison after pleading guilty to possession of 14 pounds of marijuana last year. However, that sentence was later reduced to 16 months by Justice Isaacs. The mandatory minimum sentences were introduced in 2011 as part of a compendium of crime laws. They were designed to stiffen the penalties imposed on those convicted of certain drug offenses while making it more difficult for those charged with serious crimes to get bail. As a result, the discretion of magistrates was removed altogether in some cases, and those convicted on a drug charge faced a sentence of not less than 4 years with a maximum of 7 years. In his ruling, Justice Isaacs noted, among other things, that the courts are best suited to determine the appropriate sentence to be imposed in any given case, as they have heard the evidence in the matter and are more familiar with the facts. Fern, Carey, ZNS Network News.
Well, millions of dollars in taxpayers' money continues to sit idle as a newly constructed government health complex, an extension of the Sandilands Rehabilitation Center, becomes a political dodgeball spanning 3 administrations.
Now, the new building is out of public view, but it wasn't out of reach for our Clint Watson, who got some answers in this ZNS News exclusive.
Behind the Sandilands Rehabilitation Center is a track road, obscured with bushes. You follow it, and it opens up to this wonder, a brand new building that's been sitting here. Why is it not open? It's a question we put to officials.
All sorts of things we found wrong in that building. The lift station wasn't done properly. The cameras that we paid for, we couldn't find, and we reported to the police, and the police tried, because we paid for the cameras, they say it was received. We couldn't find them on site. And so we're now in the process of completing, I think, the fire system in the building. We're looking for 1 or 2 more approvals, and we should have occupancy hopefully soon. But the fact that we paid out money, we didn't get value for dollar based on what we paid out. The building hasn't been completed. They've been unable to get the occupancy certificate. Once all the corrections are made, then they should be able to get the occupancy certificate.
Minister of National Insurance, the Honorable Shane Gibson, recounted the back and forth that the Child and Adolescent and the Robert Smith Center, a building funded by his ministry, underwent. The project began under the first Christie administration between 2005-2006 and has bounced back and forth between contractors under 3 separate administrations.
The initial contract for that building was $7.5 million with Mr. Edward Penn. Penn got sick, and they took the contract. They then gave it to Floyd Wilmot Company for some $8.6 million. Since then, he had like about a $3 million cost overrun. So he has received in excess of between $10 and $12 million for that building. He still didn't complete it. We have since terminated the contract with him.
Our news team pressed the minister on why a building of such magnitude was allowed to sit and deteriorate without any press to complete it or correct the deficiencies.
The thing is, you hire contractors, who are not known for having the capacity to complete a building of that magnitude. I mean, if you look at the history of the contractor, for instance, you ask, what is the value of the buildings you completed of this magnitude before? And you see that there were none. So you move from a contractor from having a couple $100,000 job to giving them an $8-10 million job just before Elizabeth by-election.
Minister Gibson could not provide a date when the building would be completed and opened.
I just sent them an email last week letting them know that the building was sitting on there for too long. They listed all of the outstanding issues and items that need to be corrected. And once those are corrected, then we will seek to get an occupancy certificate.
Clint Watson, ZNS Network News.
And so to come, the nation's chief defends his position on national matters.
And the former chairman of the gaming board says no to the gaming bill. You're watching the Bahamas Tonight.
This segment of the news is brought to you by Shell Quality Fuels.